My first question to Dr. Aparna Sharma would be, what would be the future of jobs and evolving job roles in this post-COVID times? Can you just share a few views with us, please? Dr. Aparna Sharma, over to you.
Thanks. Thanks, Monisha, for that generous introduction. And many thanks to ERA and especially Amalda for thinking of me and getting me a part of this very interesting and gracious panel. So, I mean, a lot has been, Monisha, when you actually laid the foundation, but the world looks starkly different to the one in just a few months ago. What were thought of as golden rules or things that would never bend have already broken. Leadership playbooks have changed or are changing. The era of digital experimentation is over. Thinking digital is no longer someone else's job. It's now on everybody's JD. And thinking digital is not just about efficiency, but it's also about enabling innovation. Since she mentioned I'm also an author and a very avid reader, a noted science fiction author, William Gibson, has said something very apt for these times. As the essence of our current times in this one statement, we have future because our present is so disrupted. Okay. This statement might seem very pessimistic. We might just feel down in the dumps, but there's lots of sunshine and there's lots to look forward to. In the job market of tomorrow or the jobs for tomorrow, two things are going to be of permanent importance in my view: capability and copability.
Monisha, you are on mute.
Yeah, can you all hear me? Malabika, what you were telling us was really informative. I mean, what we have seen also previously, a lot of offices, like you said, there are some niche skills. And one thing what you just now said was very true, that you all have not seen, I mean, employees have not seen each another for a very, very long time. It's been like ages that we have actually gone ahead and, seen our colleagues, and we have even met them across. So, yes, that's true. That's very true. But you could just put a little more light on what you just now said. Talent acquisition managers, you said, are facing these challenges. But then, are you all just facing it and moving ahead with it, or you all are planning to, work out certain strategies for it or something like that? Can you just let me know about that?
Yes, of course. So this really came up suddenly, and we had to quickly be flexible enough to kind of gauge the situation and come up speed there. So yes, so in terms of hiring, yes, it has been more of we are relying more on a first round of psychometric assessment so that we do have a better job match for the person. And then of course it has been the video interviews. So that has kind of been quite in place now. It seems to be the norm now. But yes, what should I say? The onboarding still. I have people joining in my team. I have two persons whom I really haven't met, really face to face, and they've joined me last 3 months. So yes, the onboarding is a challenge, and the talent acquisition managers in my team, they are making it as best as possible through the induction training and proper support, and also kind of sensitizing the managers to handhold them so that they are more comfortable. They get a good experience because it is a new role for them, a new organization for them. So yes, so that it has been a little more of a the EQ part, which we have focused on more, so that we give a better experience.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Malabika. Now, what has happened is due to the COVID-19, the entire business landscape has just gone beyond our wildest imagination. All the office blocks have become empty, schools, sports clubs, buildings, everything are shut. We are being told to stay home for an indefinite period. While the lockdown was announced in March 20, it has forced everyone to work from home. That this was something new to most of us because most of the organizations were not so agile to introduce this in time. But the some who believe that work from home was just not an option had to rethink and reset their operations. Sonali, I would set due to COVID is literally creating a whole new set of challenges for the talent acquisition managers and the leaders. How do you think they are going to gear up for this? Are they geared up or how are they going to gear up for this? Sonali, can you just let us know on this, please? Sonali?
Yes, I'm here.
Yeah.
Hi. At the outset, thanks to Ira, Amalda, Nagraj, and Ira team for this evening. It doesn't happen very often when you talk about a subject to the specialists themselves, right? So while we know that we are talking to Ira members who have partnered corporates in their talent needs across, but I think it's all about perspective sharing for today evening. So taking on your question, Monisha, you're absolutely right. And like Aparna and Malabika have already made mentions of this earlier on in their responses. It's needless to say that the last 7 months have been a world of discoveries and possibilities for all of us. With the kind of colossal impact that we have seen this pandemic have over business and economy globally, I think we're into two spectrums. There is one part of the spectrum with industries like aviation, travel, tourism, hospitality, which has seen significant slowdown. And then there is the other spectrum in terms of edtech, digital payments, healthcare, pharma, FMCG, e-commerce, which has again taken a big uptick. While most of us, for the first few weeks of the entire lockdown that happened in this pandemic, started operating from home, and we were figuring out in terms of how do we ensure that we are all digitally equipped, we have the right resources in terms of right from the systems, bandwidth, Wi-Fi is at home, and how do we ensure that the digital collaboration is taken care of. But the whole, the whole advantage of working in an office, in a defined office premises is gone, right? Our conventional wisdom says that offices are critical for productivity and obviously give a tangible shape to the culture of the organization, right? So while all of this has happened, most of us who work from home have used technologies, video conferencing, Zoom calls, Skype calls, various other tools in terms of digital collaboration. So a lot of people who were living in metros, for example, have had initially seen this as a boon because they were liberated from office commutes. And many colleagues found this the extra time in their day to be used as in very productive, developing hobbies, nurturing hobbies, or spending that, getting that extra flexibility to spend time with family, balancing their personal and professional lives. But eventually, that fatigue, there is a set fatigue in terms of doing video conferencing calls and not being able to have that one-on-one connect. And this is not only for the folks who have been part of the teams, who have worked together in teams, whether within the same geography, same office premises, facility, or even cross geographies, but who have known each other for quite some time. And there are working relationships established, but this has been impacting all the more to the new segment of people who have come on board. I'll give an example from where we onboarded campus hires as well as some laterals who we had given offers earlier in the year, and they were supposed to join us in the first quarter. Uh, Given the uncertainty of business, we had to defer the offer by good 45 days. But when we finally onboarded them, the level of anxiety and anxiousness and apprehension that people had with respect to business, because one is the industry part of it. Second is the fact that, as Aparna also mentioned, that the trend was catching up in terms of downsizing of business across industries, in terms of the principles being used, especially last in, first out, new joinee not being sure about how long would they want to continue. There were questions coming up whether they should at all leave their current employers and come on board, right? So there was a constant need of reassurance. And imagine all of this happening when there is no tangible office that they have ever seen, right? It was all the more difficult when we were hiring for some very, very critical positions. And we did hire them in the second quarter, early part of the second quarter. But imagine people wanting to, where we were trying to get those critical talent in, where they have never seen the physical being of the office, right? They do not, it's like playing a blind game. They do not know that what this blind date will lead them to, right? So, so therefore, in those instances, what was most important was continuous, authentic, responsive communication between the TA team and the potential candidate. Right?
Yes.
Eventually, in the talent hiring journey, when the hiring managers came on board in the game, and eventually their hiring managers in their entire chain, right from the reporting manager to the skip level to the functional head, we had to do a lot of handholding internally with those managers to tell them and guide them as to how their roles have evolved in the current times, and why is it important to go that extra mile to help the person and address those anxieties.
That's nice. Yes, that is really, really nice, Sonali, on what you have been doing in your organization. Uh, Businesses are being forced to also make a number of tough decisions about furloughing staff, salary deductions. Some of them are even closing offices. This has given us all food for thought about what the working world is going to look like now in the post-COVID era. These stories are reality, and they evoke a lot of painful conversations. Employers can still stand out by rewarding the loyalty of employees in whatever minuscule little way that they can. Rising feeling of job insecurity during COVID is leading to anxiety. It's leading to fear among job seekers and employees. How do you think this can be taken care of by the talent acquisition managers, leaders in the organization? Aparna, can you please share some thoughts on this, please?
Thanks, Monisha, for not addressing me as doctor this time. You paid heed to my request. Yeah, so I think it's a brilliant question, and I sort of make it very pointed by saying 5 things. Okay, and I think Malabika sort of alluded to it in her answer as well. But the first thing is to TA managers and leaders to maintain a positive candidate experience. Okay, amidst all the change and uncertainty. Managing candidate experience might not seem like a top priority at this time, when companies are starting to slow down or freeze hiring or whatever. But how you treat candidates or future employees now in these times will impact your talent brand in the long run. And in case the experience is not positive, it may make it harder for you to attract candidates when it's time to start hiring again. Okay, so I think, while businesses may be focused on the short term, the TA managers and HR folks need to have, their eyes on the longer term to say, what kind of an impression people are giving about the talent brand. That's the first thing. The second thing is there is a need to convey, the company culture to candidates. You say you keep them warm. You keep them warm in the process. So how do you convey company culture when you've not met them, you've only done video interviews, etc.? There are no meetings, etc. Storytelling. Okay, storytelling is a key skill for talent acquisition leaders and recruiters, in my view. And it helps. It's of course a skill and an art which needs to be developed, but it's something that can help people get an almost near to real experience of the organization that they may join in future. Okay. The third thing is that the interviews, whenever they happen, need to be more compassionate. Okay. When I say compassionate, I'm not saying that we don't ask the tough questions, but we need to be a little more considerate and thoughtful. If you hear noise in the background, or if you see kids running around, when you're interacting with someone, so thoughtfulness and compassion from that point of view. The fourth thing is, in the time of physical distancing, we need to put in more effort to stay connected, with colleagues and candidates, even if it's on the phone, over the phone. Okay. So, there is physical distancing. Okay. And I'd we don't want to get into semantics between social distancing and physical distancing. But I think what is being asked of is physical distancing, and not so much distancing from people socially. So there's a need to constantly stay connected. And the fifth thing is compassion and thoughtfulness in the process. Positive candidate experience is all good, but there is a need for a lot more empathy to understand what could be going on in the other person's situation when you're actually talking. So being focused, being empathetic towards the other person. And to give you an example, I was just talking to somebody, and this TA person was interviewing a candidate, and 5 minutes into the interview, the TA manager concluded that this person is not the right person for the role that the one is looking at. Okay, from a culture fit and so on and so forth. However, the person on the other side, or the candidate, was in a very distressed situation. Okay, so even it's very clear that this person is not the person who's going to make it as part of the organization. The TA, manager invested time in continuing to engage and talk to the candidate, just from a humanitarian perspective, from a well-being perspective, and spent that time. It doesn't matter whether you onboard the person or not, you select the person or not. But I think in these times, being there for each other when they are being part of the process, put through the process, goes a long way in creating an impression about what kind of an employer are you, and what kind of values and ethics do you uphold in the organization. This happened very recently, just last week, and somebody was narrating this. I think it's a brilliant example of the person being empathetic. Yes, it does take up time, but I think it's surely worth investing, since we know that everybody is going through a lot of challenges personally as well.
Correct. So very, very true, Aparna, very true. And empathy is something that is needed a lot in today's world. Economies are getting rebooted. They are trying to get back to work, back to business. The world needs fresh thinking as never before. But more than that, it needs insights that make an impact in the real world. It's an opportunity to explore how we can adapt now to the future of this post-COVID business. Talent acquisition leaders, managers, all of them have a larger role to play to attain a balance in hiring, not just for on-site employees, but also for off-site employees, a blended workforce. So there are some people who are coming a few days into the office, some of them who are working from home. So it's a mixed bag of employees that are there and they have to source for them. So what are your thoughts on this, Malabika, about the larger role that they have to play to attain this balance? What do you think?
Yeah, so true, Monisha. Actually, you mentioned, the blended workforce, and within the same organization. Like if I consider my organization in RR Kabel, we have factories, we have sales, and then we have our corporate and offices.
Exactly.
So there has been situations, the factories had to start much earlier. In the month of April itself, we started, the factories. So there was a complete, daily normal work had to happen there. And then you have slowly, when the unlock started, the sales people had to start. They started visiting markets wherever they were open. And in corporates, of course, it has been Mumbai. So we are doing the rostering and people are attending. So it is definitely being a live example of a blended scenario. So definitely the talent acquisition managers, when they are hiring, so in terms of which role they are hiring for, and while there were the normal challenges which I had just mentioned a few minutes back, there's been challenges in terms of assuring employees that yes, we had to be we are still very careful at the factories that they have 1,000, 2,000 workers in our 7-8 factories, and we need to have full precautions and full confidence for the employees to join. So even for a new joinee, so there's been different kinds of challenges in terms of when people come to join, they have to be on quarantine, and then only they can come to work. So there has been for the talent acquisition manager, for the different roles, there's been different kinds of strategy in which, and the different kinds of onboarding which they have to plan and do. So the role definitely has become a very challenging role, and very, I would say, I think in the HR, the talent acquisition manager, this role has been the role where the most development, I would say, has taken place, in terms of handling, these situations. But yes, as Aparna mentioned, the soft skills part of it, the compassion part of it has really come to the fore, where we are realizing that everybody is under stress, everybody is having some kind of emotional disturbance. So how do we make it easy for the candidate? So that is what the talent acquisition manager is striving for. Apart from the talent acquisition manager and the role they play, even the managers, the immediate managers, have to really take up that, because once we do the onboarding and slowly the candidate really goes to the his or her function. So the reporting manager's roles become very important. It's like become more of a one is to helping the person settle down, and also conveying trust, that yes, I trust you, I know that you will take the ownership, you will take the responsibility and do the job, even if we are not really face to face there. So that has been an important role which HR has played in terms of sensitizing the managers, that you will need to give that experience and give that time to the new joinee. So definitely, so it has been really a learning experience as to how to handle all kinds of workforce. And in the same organization, you have so many challenges where one section of person has to go daily, to office. A lot of them are working from home, and there is always this comparison of how do we handle this kind of different. But that's how the role is. Some jobs cannot be done from home.
Yes.
So yes, so it it has been different kinds of strategies for handling different kinds of hiring. and that's how we have managed to do it.
Actually, Malabika, now that we see the onboarding that is happening, I mean, we have never ever thought that, a particular candidate has to even carry, a COVID negative test report, because that was one of the prerequisite when we were doing the onboarding for one of the clients, when we were sending candidates, and that was what was asked. So, it's all a new change for everybody, I think, yeah. And
Yes.
explaining to them that, okay, partly you will be in office, sometimes you will have to work from home. So you have to, I think, go with the flow. That is what this new normal is teaching us, actually. Yeah. So the pandemic is creating an immense shock, not just to our society, but it's also affecting our economy adversely. However, there is a silver lining in this bleak scenario, and doors have opened to explore some new online courses for the candidates who are now available in the market, along with polishing their professional as well as their communication skills. So this is the silver lining. Many of us have explored actually our hidden talents and have even mastered skills that we could not have, spared time um, much before the lockdown. Upskilling is emerging as the best strategy for most of the candidates to prepare themselves for this future world. Can you just share some thoughts on this, Sonali, with us? What do you think about this question? You're on mute. Yeah. Yes.
Like good?
Yes, yes. Perfect. Please.
I was saying that, as the saying goes, that what was good yesterday may have little or no relevance today. Right? And this pandemic situation has actually shown us how this plays out. So this has once again brought in a very sharp focus on the relevance of skills, reskilling, upskilling. Traditionally, in the manufacturing setup, multi-skilling on the shop floor has been a very common practice. And it is also, on the other side, it is also traditionally expected by employees that their development in terms of skill development is only the corporate's role. It is always attributed that if I need to learn something, it is my employer who will put me through a particular learning journey, or put me through a structured IDP program, and I will be put through a structured classroom program or enrolled into a mini MBA or XYZ. That has been very significantly challenged in this recent times, right? And look at the number of enrollments that have happened on open courses that are there, whether it is through Coursera or it is through various other edutech companies that are actually offering these courses. And just to give you a quick pointer also is the fact that the companies today are wanting to do more with less, which means that when the companies are looking at resizing themselves, they are not going back in the market to hire at all times. They're expecting the existing workforce to gear up and do the other roles, right? And therefore, this is where upskilling will essentially come into the play. So needless to say that investment on self-development, whether it is done by the employer or whether one wakes up to this call and takes the self-initiative of upskilling oneself, will be very, very critical. And as a result of this, as an outcome of this, we have seen some beautiful success stories which have emerged in our own organization.
Okay.
Just to give an example, is we are a sales-heavy organization and have a large frontline base. We have commercial operations across the various state capitals where warehousing happens, and therefore secondary billings happen to various distribution points. The commercial team eventually we used the first quarter while we were still limping back to business. We used the first quarter to automate a lot of processes, commercial processes, right? Because it was a lean business period. So we put the team below to ensure that the processes were automated. Eventually, it led to redundancy of some roles.
Okay.
And we quickly ensured that those people were put into warehousing operations, and they had to learn up a lot in terms of automating warehousing operations, right from WMS to syncing up to the internal tools that we have, and manage that process, right? So that kind of a change that happened in terms of their own career trajectory for that set of or community of workforce was exemplary within the system. We also had very good success stories on our manufacturing setup itself, because when we ran the manufacturing lines, we had a lot of migratory population from the UP Bihar Jharkhand belt, which actually moved back to their base hometowns. So some critical skill sets also were lost. So we had to quickly ensure that we were able to make sure that with the existing local workforce that we had, we could rebuild those skills.
Okay.
So these kind of upskilling, reskilling, multi-skilling programs helped a lot for us. And I'm sure that when I keep talking to my fraternity colleagues, there are ample stories of such success that we hear.
That's so nice. That is really so nice. So that means people who have been furloughed, who have been, terminated, or who have lost their jobs, there's nothing to worry. I mean, upskill yourself, move ahead, and somewhere, someplace, there is a possibility, like we said, a silver lining for them. So in this time frame that we have spent 7 months in this lockdown, we have a team number of surveys, we have done a lot of research, we have attended multiple webinars, trends around how the pandemic has impacted the workplace, the people. We are still trying to figure out what will be the next new normal. Every time we come out with some strategies and some processes, we are again going back to the drawing board and ask, okay, will this work? Will that work? Or will it not work at all? But one thing is sure, that the workplace, the way the workplace is going to function, is going to have a sea change. There's going to be a reinventing of the entire wheel. It's going to be a new normal. We unlearn things and we learn things again all over the place. Technology, digitization, automation are all playing a larger role in this pandemic times. And I'm sure most of us are also catching up to it. COVID-19 has played the real disruptor for the current business processes as well as the scenario. What has been the biggest learning from the talent acquisition leaders for them, as well as for the managers and for the HR fraternity as a whole? So this question is open to Aparna. First to you. I would want you to give us some takeaways on this entire thing. And then we'll move to Malabika and, of course, Sonali. Please give me your takeaways from this particular question.
So, in my view, the first thing is the continuous need to build a strong employer brand. Okay, that's the very important takeaway and learning for all, not only in talent acquisition, but the overall HR community. The second one is to get the talent sourcing strategy right. Okay. The third one is being, looking at expanding the candidate reach. The fourth one, and something that I mentioned earlier, is ensuring a memorable candidate experience. A positive one at that. Also ensuring that there is team collaboration, between HR, between recruiters, with the hiring managers. Even though people are working remotely, there is a lot of collaboration and connect and contact. Again, something that I alluded to earlier. Two more things is this has given the opportunity, and I think Sonali alluded to this, is they took to automation in the first quarter, she mentioned. But I think it's given an opportunity to streamline the selection process.
Yes.
This downtime has helped organizations to streamline the selection process. And finally, focusing on data, cleaning up data, whatever it means. And we all understand as HR folks, what clean data looks like, and ensuring that there is data security.
Yes.
Okay, especially in a remote situation when people are working, ensuring that candidate and employee data is secure in all respects.
Absolutely. Yeah, very true, Aparna. Very true. Malabika, what do you think about this?
So I guess we are talking on the talent acquisition perspective. So one line first would I say is that this is possible. We were caught unawares at the start of the game, and then we were just wondering how will this happen, and we realized that this is possible. There are ways and means in which you can still work. It did seem daunting at the outset, but I would say that taking a cue from what Aparna said is that the entire talent acquisition has been kind of broken down into three major areas. One is the recruitment marketing, which she mentioned, Aparna, as the employer branding. So it's very important in these times that what is the image and what is the branding we are conveying to the candidate, because they are already they would like to most of them are in an uncertain stage, and they would like to work for a company which does give due to their employees.
Correct.
So one is the how do we position our brand. Second would be the digital side of it. So absolutely this pandemic taught us that how important is it. There's no choice that whether we go for a digital upgradation or digital advancement. This has to be this is the need of the hour.
Correct.
And that helped us a lot, and we have our internal HRMS which played a big role in this remote working. And third would be the entire analytics piece in terms of understanding what will be the strategy, where do we hire from, what is the kind of profiles we need, and the entire analytics which industry, because this came more in the front in these kind of times. So I would say these are the main learnings which happened in this new normal.
Very nice. Sonali, what do you think about this? Your takeaway on this?
I will shorten it to three specifics. One is where it is important to explore the alternatives on talent pool. Gig economy workers, contractual engagements, which are more project driven, rather than having a continued employment format. Number two is speak your business story by integrating various social media platforms and merging it with or making it part of your recruitment marketing strategy.
Okay.
Number three is watch out for the softer skills which align with the employer's DNA. Name a few, for example, digital savviness or digital collaboration, data-driven mindset will be very critical, frugal mindset, because that cost lens is all pervasive now. Resilience and empathy in today's times and the times to come. And needless to say, a well-connected, authentic leadership where genuineness really comes up, speaks up. And while I say all of this, the last two, three are extremely critical to assess and the most difficult to assess.
True. Very true. Very true. And I'm sure now that, with so many inputs that all three ladies have given, the entire, viewers who are listening, the audience who's listening to you all, have definitely taken a few pieces of information. If you could see, the chat box is full of questions, and I would want you all to just take a few questions from here also. Okay. So I have I think there is Mausam. She has been asking about building long-term relationships with candidates in gig economy. So gig economy is something that is, we are seeing at this point of time during this pandemic. So how do you build these long-term relationships with gig workers is what this person is asking. So who will take this question? Can any one of you all take this question, please? Any one of you all? Aparna, Sonali, Malabika, any one of you all, if you could take this question.
Yeah, so when the question itself of having expecting long-term relationship is what something which the gig economy person may not be looking at, but yes, uh, even if it is not long term, the important thing which a gig economy worker looks at is flexibility, is something they expect in their working, so which is something which will help them build a long term with the organization. Second is they would want a company where there is a good support in terms of digital advancement, digital technology, which can help them work, because that is what they are looking for. Third would be a learning, that there is a learning, in a constant learning in the job they are doing, and a challenging job, not a monotonous job. So these will be the things which will help them to kind of whatever long term relationship is possible, that can still happen.
True. Very true. There is also another question which says, are the consultants measuring up to your hiring needs? Sonali and Malabika, you could be sharing us. Do the consultants actually live up to your needs? Are we really helping you guys in your hiring?
Can I just add to the previous point?
Yes,
Sorry to interrupt.
please add.
I was yeah. So I just wanted to say that I think bang on Malabika said that gig of course is people are not looking at long term, but what is also being seen is that even though somebody is coming in from a gig perspective for a project or whatever, they still have a need to belong.
Correct.
All right, it's not transactional, saying plug and play, you give me the money and here I go, I deliver and I go. Ultimately we are talking about the social connect, the emotional connect, hence the need to belong. All right. What has also been seen is that since people have been tried in these project situations through the gig process, it becomes easier for a company to decide if they want to actually onboard that person, given if there is a need in terms of skill or a role that falls vacant. So these seem to be the catchment area or the source in terms of where companies also actively look at. So it's a win-win for both, where the person or the candidate puts their best foot forward in terms of delivery, as well as the company sort of provides digital, other support and so on and so forth, and an environment to ensure that it's a mutually symbiotic relationship. Long term or not depends again on the nature, but it's a symbiotic relationship.
Thank you. So Amal is asking this question, ladies. Malabika and Sonali, what do you think?
That's a tricky one, Amalda. To be honest, on this participant audience group, I see a lot of people who I have worked with in my various assignments. But to address your question, I think it's a two-way process. Honestly, it's a two-way process, because the moment we talk about seeking partnership from consultants for our hiring needs, there is a whole world of I would say the inputs and critical inputs that come along because of the exposure that good learned consultants bring on board, right? Because of the wide spectrum of clients that they usually engage with. And when I say engage with, it is not at the level of only for the sake of hiring or fulfilling a particular position, but in terms of understanding how the various businesses are operating and what drives the various businesses and industries. They know what kind of talent could be fungible and what could suit in. And sometimes I have, uh, uh, it's been very helpful, and I have gained a lot in terms of acting on those perspectives, which have helped me explore alternate pools completely, right? There have been times when we may have stuck with a particular thought process and probably blindfolded because we're only looking at a segment of people. However, that little nudge to explore and take punt on something else, which we had never thought of, has been very, very useful. So I think these are the times when we are gearing up a lot. And through my personal experience, having engaged with a whole lot of people in the hiring space, I do get to hear from them in terms of what is trending and what is the current pattern of talent that we are seeing, right? And that gives a lot of exposure across in terms of what's available in the market and what's trending enough.
Okay. And what do you think, Malabika?
Yeah, so yeah, very true, very, very valid points which Sonali brought out. So it is really a two-way process where it is important, very pertinent that the organization also gives the HR gives the complete, clarity of what is it we are requiring, and it also helps the consultant to understand the beyond the what is written in the job description. Beyond that, there are certain things which the the consultant needs to know in terms of a culture fit. So I think it is it evolves over time. A consultant and the HR relationship, and there is a time where the consultant totally understands what kind of profile will be a good fit for the organization. If it doesn't happen, then of course we crib, we complain that the consultant never understands what we need, and the consultant also must be wondering that what is it exactly, they don't seem to know what they want. So there is it's definitely a two-way process where while we also give the inputs to the consultants also play a very big role in letting us understand what is the trend in the market, what is the kind of skills available, and as Sonali pointed out that sometimes we may be looking at a certain industry only. Suppose I am in wires and cables, I look at only my competitors, but there could be other related industries which where the profile will very well fit in with my requirements. So those very useful inputs are given by the consultants. But I think it's an input from both sides which helps in creating this win-win situation.
That outside in perspective
Yeah.
sometimes is a game changer.
Okay. Okay. Good to know that. So there is also another question which says, are there any levels up to which you can interview by Zoom and finally hire and make an offer without physically meeting the candidate one-to-one? Are there any levels?
Yeah, no, not
No.
really. Any level and all levels. CEOs are being hired through
Right.
Zoom. So many companies, is working with a client and actually interviewed this CEO and made an offer on the Microsoft team meeting app or the system. So absolutely no levels. I think in my experience, all levels are being hired.
So
There is no other alternative at this point in time, and business cannot stop. It has to go on,
true.
right?
Very
So if it's a critical hire, surely.
Absolutely. Absolutely. There's also one more interesting question from Sharvari Desai. They would appreciate hearing your thoughts on employment break due to the pandemic. So many of them are on this break. What do you think? What would be your thoughts on this? So many people, all of them just waiting for good offers, good job offers that are yet to come into their, kitty. So
Yeah, so answering to that question, it is, I can understand, because almost every day we get to know such cases, and it is a tough time. But I would say that, what the scenario is changing. The market is opening up, and companies are now, strategizing, seeing their, future requirements, and the hiring has started. And any organization would understand, in these times, that if there has been a break in the employment based on, the industry where the person has been working. So that is something which in today's times is very normal, that we will, the employer or the recruiter will understand. So there, uh, also there is a, much more flexibility in terms of hiring, cross hiring, hiring from other industries, because we have profiles in the market. So there are chances opening up. So because, various skills are such which can apply. Suppose it's an IT skills. If there are people in the market, so they can of course work in different industries. So
okay.
that kind of situation is, so I would say the market is opening up, number one. Number two is that employment break is not something which is an adverse thing which is being considered by the hiring managers. It is a very, everybody knows it's a very universal phenomena which is happening.
Yeah.
And there are, new roles which we are open to, hire people for.
True. That is true. So
I
yeah.
as an employer do not see employment break as a taboo.
Okay.
It is by no means a taboo. It is not a reflection of uh, the performance of that individual. Uh, in today's time and age, where everyone is so well connected, you could probably pick up the phone and speak to 3 people who have had direct working relationships or indirect working relationships, either in the same organization or as a client or a customer to that individual, and figure out what's been their experience, right? So those informal reference checks are always done,
Okay.
especially to understand if somebody is fudging it out or is genuine. I would never evaluate a person who walks up to say that I have had a break because my employer, asked me to leave because the role was redundant, and or the business downsized because of the situation, right? So I think it all depends upon the hiring employer to evaluate it on the basis of merit rather than looking at it from a tenure break.
Do you think, Aparna, employment break could cause an amount of stress to the, person who's just sitting at home, waiting for the best opportunity to come across? What do you think? I mean,
Absolutely. I mean, I think goes without saying. It causes a lot of stress. People go through bouts of low self-esteem. It's also difficult for the family. If you look at LinkedIn, you see, I mean, it's a professional forum, but you often see people pleading these days to say, I'm someone who doesn't post something like this, but please, 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 I have recently lost my job, I've been trying for 5 months.
yes,
People are literally pleading and saying, please comment or like so that your contacts will get to see and hopefully something will work out.
yeah,
It's absolutely a very difficult situation. However, I mean, also, tomorrow, October 10th, is a, World Mental Health Day,
yes,
right? So I think, why organizations are looking at mental well-being and looking at employee engagement and various things, while people, are in the Zoom fatigue and whatever, extended hours, etc. But it's a different story. Everybody in today's times, I think the philosophy is, and I can say this because I'm not associated with any company full time, so I can say this without really no holds bar. Absolutely, to say people are just holding on to what they have. It's like the last straw.
Yeah.
Nobody wants to move, because you don't know ki mera number kab aayega, what may happen next. All
Yes.
right. So I think people are anxious, people are scared. Uh, and it's absolutely, that is why, the reason I said empathy, compassion, thoughtfulness, when somebody is being interviewed for another position, come in very, very handy.
Very, very true. Very true, Aparna. There's a question from MR. Um, why shouldn't the replacement clause be effective? Why can't consultants get a relief from replacement clause? Malvika, I think you should answer this.
So I would like to, unfortunately dash their hopes because the replacement clause is there to stay. Why I'm saying this is because, the peer group interaction or the boss's behavior, what is mentioned this is all still there, very much there, of course, in a different form. But it is, the person is working and interacting with everybody and everything, all the equations are coming into play here. So the replacement clause is very much there to stay. So no hopes that it will go.
Okay. Sonali, you have anything to say on that? Are you planning to change?
I concur with Malabika. There are few contractual obligations on either side that we will still continue to fulfill.
But you will not remove the replacement clause. Oh,
So I think the reason why we will not do so is the very reason why it was put in at the first place, right? There has to be some kind of an ownership of what kind of talent you have finally been able to help your client or help the employer get through. And I have worked with spectrum of consultants where somebody just still continues to help the new joinee settle down at the client's workplace by being in constant touch, because they have worked with us for so long. They know, they have seen even the leadership changes happen, and eventually the entire wave of change that probably this organization has seen, and therefore they know a lot of inside stories and are able to communicate it well and are able to put at ease the new joinee, right? So it is expected from the search partners as well that they continue that journey with the new joinee and handhold them from an outside perspective, while we as TA leaders continue to do that as part of the organization, right? And that's the very reason I am absolutely sure that this is not going to go on.
not going to change. Not going to change. What we have also seen is a kind of a clause in the agreements that if certain scheduled time, if a replacement has not been provided, certain amount of a fine or a percentage of charges are going to be levied on the consultants. I mean, what do you think the consultant should do? Should they continue association with such kind of companies, or are they to just go with the flow and follow the rules which are mentioned in the agreement? Are we
There are many things beyond the agreement. I will give you another story.
Okay.
We have, in one of my previous employers, we have had where I was leading the talent acquisition vertical. And we have had an instance where there was a miss in terms of identifying the correct source of the candidature. And instead of consultant A getting a credit, consultant B got the credit for it, right? As a TA leader, what am I supposed to be doing? Am I supposed to split the bill because it is our error? Or am I supposed to go back and accept the mistake, genuine mistake, and offer offer alternatives in terms of exclusivity of positions or a higher percentage of payout? But that is all worked out basis the relationship. All businesses are about relationships.
Correct.
Right? So it boils down to what you are putting on the table and what is at stake on the table at that point in time, and the future on both sides, right? So I think it is purely beyond, many a times it is beyond the contractual obligations as well. So I am not of the opinion that having a penalty clause itself helps. It is way beyond that.
Okay, okay, fine. There is one Mr. Vaidyanathan who has also given a question to all of y'all, saying that now that companies have invested heavy in digital technology and automations, what areas do you think they will cut expenses, other expenses on generally, since they were not planning this? So companies, that means he means to say business houses have invested in digitizing and in automation and things like that. So if I have understood that rightly, since they were not planning this, so what areas have they had to cut expenses on generally? Any areas? Do you think that they would cut having hiring consultants and doing internal recruitments through their internal teams, or how do you think companies are forecasting things going forward?
So, okay, if I talk of my organization, so the investment in digital technology was already planned, and it is, there was a kind of it was held up for 2 months in between, but it is going as per plan, and that was, as per the budget, I would say. So there is no such a plan of, cutting expense. And in our organization, so, we did not have any salary cuts or layoffs during the pandemic. So there has been no plan of cutting expense on any other account, and everything has been budgeted for. So no such thing here.
Okay. And
So,
what do you think?
you know, one of the things that I noticed is that it's not either or. I mean, I think companies have realized this need of digital transformation, and some companies have been on a journey for over a period of time. But one of the things that I've understood, since I understand that in the audience there are a few consultants as well, is companies prefer to hire especially senior people through referrals and references much more than giving a retained search. Okay. And I don't want to name organizations, but this has had an impact on some of the leading search firms who had to actually downsize some parts of their business verticals because they were or send people on furlough. I know at least of 2 or 3 where this has happened, because they were not really able to get requirements, and there was no billing for so long. So they've actually just closed down those verticals as of now, and people have gone are doing different things. So there is a strong move to hire people through references and referral networks. Of course, it doesn't go well with the search firms, but it seems to be working well for organizations because they're able to save on the cost, as well as there is much more surety in terms of the people coming in or joining, because they have been referred, and there's been Sonali talked about informal and of course formal ref checks that have happened. So this seems to be the trend as of now in my experience over the last 4-5 months.
Yeah. Okay. You have anything to say on this? Yeah.
Yeah. See, I think the value derived from these automation projects, whether they have been initiated as a result of this pandemic or whether they were ongoing, like in Malabika's case, they were ongoing investments. In our company, it was an ongoing investment. So it is, the value derived is a long-term value.
Exactly.
It will never be cross-subsidized against any existing current expenses.
True.
Organizations who have used the cost leadership model have typically looked at arresting their losses or looking at channels or geographies which were not yielding them, where the margins probably were not up to the expectation, right? Or the liabilities were too high.
Yeah.
So that is where the changes have come. Otherwise, most of the organizations have understood that they're operating at a particular threshold, and they'll continue to do so without making any major hiccups.
Okay. Now, what we have seen is most of the, you could say the labor markets, most of them have gone without jobs. People are just sitting at home. Some of them have started small side businesses, like out of the blue, you would find people selling vegetables, fruits. Some had become delivery, they had put up an app and they're doing deliveries. Lots of small businesses, emerged during this lockdown period with so many people, youngsters going jobless. Now that the unlock phase we are in the unlock phase, companies are opening up, jobs are being, we can see some kind of a silver lining. Companies are hiring. Our company is going to be tolerant enough to have this kind of workforce, which also is having a side business, apart from doing their regular work. Are they going to be tolerant enough? Or are these youngsters or this workforce have to literally shut shop or shut what they were doing during the lockdown and only focus on the jobs that the companies are giving them and get back to the work stress all over again? I'm opening this question to all three of you.
In my view, I think every company, if they hire you, they want you to be focused, dedicated 100% to them. So all your energies and your time and intellect needs to be devoted to their cause. Also, doing anything on the side amounts to dual employment. So I think that's in contradiction to the basic employment appointment letter that is given to people. So in my view, what has also been seen is people are smart, then they hand it down to sister, mother, somebody else in the family and get creative in terms of how they do it. But I think as long as they are not involved in it, and the work time is also not deriving revenue out of it, and it is distracting them from what they need to do.
Yes.
I think there's little that companies can do to stop if it has been handed over to mother, sister, or somebody else in the family. That's been my experience.
Actually, yes.
Well, I have a slightly different point of view here. The very need for having a second revenue stream for that individual implicated in the fact that there were insecurities building up.
Absolutely.
Now, also there is the whole aspect of entrepreneurial ventures that people are getting into, and that entrepreneurial bug, especially for the youngsters, where they are wanting to do something on the side, right? So till the time it is in a very non-compete space, I think exclusivity of employment is something which organizations will start looking up. And there is no harm in helping these organic growth happen around. The entire ecosystem can be built in where there is a lot of synergy across even in these organic growths that are happening.
Okay. Yeah, Malabika.
Yeah, no, it's a very interesting question you posed, Monisha, and my first, would have been reaction is that yes, dual employments are not allowed, and a person has to give full attention to what the company's role, and it shouldn't be that you are utilizing the company's time to do some of your the other business. But yes, if I really look at youngsters who would like to do something new, and especially in these times when if there are insecurities and you need a backup, then I guess we will have to be flexible enough as an HR fraternity to understand this need. And the important thing, as Sonali mentioned, is the non-compete area. That if it is a non-compete area and if person wants to do something, it will be a major, I would say, shift from, because our current employment contracts very clearly mention no dual employment. So even currently, it has always been that their sisters, mothers, or spouse must be doing some business, but we very clearly say that you cannot be doing another revenue income. You cannot have. But yes, this is something which we will need to think about and maybe be more flexible.
And especially in such kind of times. So that's something which just struck to me. There is one question, and then of course we will go in to ask our chairman of ERA, Amanda, also to ask a question to you all, and of course give the closing note. There's one, Mr. Jogendra, and he has asked, give us some suggestions on virtual induction for new graduate trainees.
That's an interesting one. I was actually speaking to the second year's students of St. Xavier's, because they had this task of having a virtual induction design done for the newcomers, for the freshers who were joining.
Okay. So,
sorry, I kind of barged into the question, getting excited about it.
Yes, you could. Yeah.
Instead of a complete virtual induction model, while there are pros and cons around it, a hybrid model, which I would call a phygital model, has probably more takers. Where you can actually have these small microcosms of buddy setups set up in the same location or around the same neighborhood, if that's possible. In large metros, probably, where in suburbs, in certain section of the suburbs where things are now easing out and you could still huddle up together for a quick Friday coffee or a Friday drink. That probably helps in terms of getting the physical feel and seeing your colleague in flesh and blood. At the same time, ensuring that you have the entire must-know coverage that needs to be done for a corporate induction to be done on a virtual platform.
Okay. So, Aparna, do you have any take on this particular?
No, I think I agree with what Sonali has said, and looks like a lot of organizations are doing it not only for graduate trainees, but I think it's happening virtually, for all the employees that are joining currently.
Yeah, true, very true. Have you all done any? You all must be doing a lot of inductions. Everything must be doing virtually only, Malabika, in your.
Yes, of course, it is all virtual. But when I talk of graduate engineer trainees, when I talk of the engineers, then since our plants are functioning fully, so they do have a physical induction. But for our other management trainees and others, they are all completely virtual induction. It is a little I interact with them more because it is their first job, and this is how they are entering the workforce. So it is a little more responsibility from my side and also from their reporting managers. I also tell the functional heads to kind of interact with them at least once a week and understand how they are doing, so that it is and they are very keen to know when they can start coming to office.
Yes. Very true.
In fact, there are a few companies that have set up certain platforms and some tools to facilitate this virtual, Amizo, and some companies that have set up these tools and platforms to enable companies, so sort of form a bridge between the trainees and the companies.
That's really nice. That's very nice. So we could go on and on and on, and there is so much to talk actually, and the questions could be just pouring in actually. But then we have to, sum it up